There are tales that resist the telling. Stories that like roots burrow deeper into the parchment the harder one tries to coax them into the light. They prefer the hush of the stacks, the dark, silent places between the pages when memory itself hides and sleeps. I am Radagast, Chief Librarian of the Royal Collection, guardian of maps to lost places and songs of tongues no longer spoken. For decades I have been a keeper of echoes. I have dusted off histories that smelled of salt and iron. I have mended spines that once housed a people's prayer. But the most terrible tale I hold did not come to me from vellum, nor from the fragile whispered mouths of the old. It came from this, an eye of stone. This Palantír was reclaimed from the foul-reeking rubble of the Black Tower after the war that crowned King Elisar and saw the ring undone. It arrived not with trumpets, but in the night. A faithful messenger, a servant whose loyalty I shall not betray, placed the wrapped stone upon my table and left without salutation. This stone did not go into the royal coffers. It was not displayed in the hall. It was not paraded before the curious. It is a secret I keep. I never told the king. I never told the steward. Nobody else knows of this stone. Only I and that silent courier share its secret. Only I have listened to its dreams.
You must understand that many in the citadel believe the Palantír to be a relic, a beautiful, inert thing, its face as black as a winter pool. They say its time passed with the Dark Lord. They are wrong. The stone does not sleep. It dreams. And the stone's dreams are of an ending not spoken of in the songs of the brave, not of a blaze and a final trumpet, but of a patient dimming, a letting go. It shows me a conclusion that is small in every moment, yet colossal in its sweep. The world allowed to go cold by degrees. This is the vision I have inscribed. This is the voice I give to a silence that wanted to be heard.
The vision begins, always, with a quiet emptiness. Not the catastrophe of thunder and falling towers, but a silence so thorough that life itself seems to hush to hear what comes next. The Palantír first chose me the grey havens, but not as a harbour left empty. It chose them as a meaning undone. The last white sails vanish into the breast of the sea like a thought that's lost before it is finished. The quay stones stand slick with the same water, but no hands touch ropes anymore. The cottages are not merely unoccupied, they are hollowed, as if memory has been drawn from within them. Windows are blind eyes. Ivy crawls over shutters like a funeral shroud. The Eldar are not only gone, their songs have left the world. Where once the air carried the music of the Valar and the scent of the undying lands, there is only the slow unweaving of those songs into story, then into legend names, then into legend, and off the cliff into dust. This is the first act of the great forgetting. the warmth that used to hum quietly beneath the world's skin, that living, restless light goes out, and with it 1,000 small mercies. And in the silence that follows the elves' departure, another tale unfolds, one that men speak of only in broken verses and hushed tavern whispers. The dwarves, the stone folk of old, reclaim their ancient halls beneath the mountains. They descend into the root vaults and deep forges of their forefathers, sealing the doors behind them. The Palantír shows me the great gates of Khazad-dûm closing, the last torch guttering into darkness. They do not merely hide, they turn inward and cut themselves off from the wider world. With mighty axes and runes of closing, they hew the stairways and bar the passages, their songs echoing only in subterranean halls. They do not return to the light, nor do they send forth emissaries to trade or negotiate. They choose seclusion, an exile of their own making, and in doing so, the world loses another guardian. This withdrawal is no act of fear, but a fidelity to the places they love, a steadfast turning inward, and yet also a renunciation of the common cause. Their halls are full, their forges alight, yet their hands are absent from the councils of men. Such severance is a wound as deep as any sword could strike.
From there, the Palantir's gaze swings reluctantly toward men, and what it reveals is the triumph of our pride and folly. In the absence of other guardians, we assumed the mantle of the world's stewardship, and we made of it a throne for our vanity. We built monumental cities of glass and steel that clawed at the heavens, towers gleaming like sharpened spears, and sprawling complexes of stone and iron that swallowed the countryside whole. We called it progress. We called it mastery. Yet the Palantir sees through these names. It sees forests felled to stumps, rivers reduced to brown ribbons of industry, and coal-black smoke that drapes over once verdant plains like a sickness. We reached for the stars with a vanity that mistook itself for courage, an ascent not of spirit, but a fleeing from that which once gave life its depth. The subtle arts the Eldar knew, not mere trickery, but a listening to the very music of Arda in leaf and stream, faded from our regard. We called their wisdom superstition and set it upon altars of mockery.
The wars that follow in the vision are not the noble wars sung of in the halls of old. They are petty, senseless, habitual conflagrations. They are wars of claim, of enclosure, of pastime, ignited when stillness unnerves the hearts of men. The Palantir shows me battalions whose faces are empty, eyes staring outward, yet perceiving nothing. They fight because they are commanded to do so. They kill because, in a world stripped of meaning, the act of violence alone scratches a raw, unnameable itch within their souls. Hatred becomes ritualized, a mechanized devotion with no creed save contempt. And as men claw and contend for scraps of dominion, The earth itself begins to protest. Rivers that once bore the white boats of elf lords run thick and rusty, heavy with the filth of our industries. Forests fall to stumps whose wounded sap trickles as though the trees themselves mourned. Mountains are hollowed like bones, drilled for the glitter of ore. From these hollow depths, from the black fissures and carved-out underworld, things stir and awaken, ancient and patient, drawn forth by the scent of decay and the shadow of our folly.
Here I must linger, for this is no mere whisper, but a clarion warning. Rumors circulate, not the idle phantoms of tavern talk, but truths the Palantír reveals with chilling clarity, that Shelob and other ancient evils are stirring from their shadowed lairs. Shelob herself, patient and bloated with the years of neglect, turns her many eyes toward roads now empty of song. Other names slither back into speech: spider broods, cave worms, lost shades that had long been bound. The Palantír offers no comfort. These are not mere beasts, but echoes of old malice, cunning and insatiable, drawn by the despair that now permeates the world. Hear this as plainly as my voice carries to you. They do not march or proclaim themselves, but slip into the fissures we have carved. They feed upon our negligence, and in that feeding they grow larger than any tale or warning could contain. The world we once believed safe, that we thought secured by our victories, is no longer so. We have cracked the lid of the hidden box, and whatever crawled beneath it now roams freely.
Then the vision turns inward to a sorrow that defies thunder. The Valar withdraw. They do not cast fire upon our sins. They do not rend the skies in wrath. Their departure is a grief older than any war, profound and patient, a mourning that no song can reach. The Palantír shows the west, and the coastline seems to recede, not by the will of the sea, but because men have forgotten the straight road. The last glimmer of that road, a promise, a pathway, an invitation, was not closed by decree, but by neglect and disbelief. The children of Ilúvatar once walked among companions who sang the world into harmony. Now the chorus thins, and the air grows perceptibly colder. From that thinning, from the silence left by their absent song, arises, like a cracked and bitter echo from Arda itself, an anti-song. It is not melody, but cacophony, the groans of suffering, the cries of hatred, the unrelenting roar of machinery, a music born not of creation, but of erosion, a chorus that twists the fabric of the world, shaking its foundations, vibrating in the bones of the mountains, and calling to powers that should have remained distant.
Let me name it plainly, the anti-song of humanity. It is no music, but a terrible assemblage of sound that wounds the soul. It is the clatter of wheels, the rasp of grinding machines, the hoarse chant of crowds urging cruelty, the thin keening of those bereaved, and the triumphant drumbeat of tyrants. This anti-song is not mere noise. In the vision, it vibrates the deep foundations of Arda. Imagine a chord so discordant that even the stones recoil. Imagine a sound so persistent, so saturated with contempt and despair that the world itself trembles in response. The Palantír shows these vibrations crawling beneath the skin of the world, bending the very weave of matter and spirit. The anti-song becomes a beacon, a bitter, luminous call that stretches beyond the known circles, flinging itself into the timeless void, and whispers insistently, "We have need of you." It is, in its dreadful clarity, a prayer, but not to Eru, not to the light that gave birth to Arda. It is a summoning to that which waits beyond the order of the world, an invitation to return patient and watchful, to reclaim that which has been rent asunder.
What follows in the Palantir's vision is a deed of such deliberate profanation that the crystal in my hand grew icy as though it burned through my flesh. The waning empires of men, bloated with greed and vanity, do not merely crumble, they reach a conscious, obscene culmination of their pride. Their rulers do not sit upon thrones for governance, but command worship as if they were gods incarnate. They raise effigies of steel and carve stones so vast that entire towns lie in shadow beneath them. Monuments designed to blot out the sky, to bend the hearts of all who dwell beneath. And to enforce this worship comes sacrifice. Not of cattle or grain, but of their own people, those few who cling to the old truths, who whisper that kings are mortal and that divinity does not dwell among men. These acts are no mere ritual, they are the vehement repudiation of Ilúvatar's gift, a screaming denial of birth and death, of life's sacred bounds. Each act is not a ceremony, but a key wrought from the purest cruelty, turned with audacious certainty in the lock that had lain sealed since the War of Wrath. And in that turning, the world itself quivers, for what was long bound stirs once more.
And I cannot help but call to mind Númenor. Remember Númenor, the slow enthrallment of men by pride, until that island was sunk beneath a sea of judgment. This memory is no mere footnote. It is a warning stitched into the fabric of the Palantir's vision. I ask you, as I asked myself while the stone trembled beneath my palm, is this cycle, the ascent to arrogancy, the worship of self, the descent into ruin, a constant of men? Are we a people who, gifted with talent and life, inevitably turn those gifts into their own undoing? The Palantir offers no answer but the scene itself, and the scene is not kind.
Then the unimaginable, a change in the state of being. He returns, not the hulking, temper-ruled lord of old tales, not a tyrant that can be met and slain with steel. Morgoth's return is a change in the world's pulse. It is an atmospheric poison that floods the air with a knowledge both slow and absolute. A certainty pressed upon every mind on Arda. It is not sound that warns, it is cognition. Every thinking thing knows, as though a bell had been struck inside the skull. He is here. His presence is not a march, but a seep. It moves into the soil like oil. It threads through rivers. It taints the breath. His body, where it exists, is composed of the despair we have cultivated, the scarred earth underfoot, the breath we cannot purify, the darkness eating the last stubborn candles of hope in mortal hearts.
And now, hear me as though the Palantír were still hot in my hands. The vision stretches across the heavens. This is the part of the stone's dream that the old songs only dared hint at in trembling lines. It is written in the prophecies of the Dagor Dagorath, and in the Palantír it reads as a decree of ending. The very lights of the sky turn against us. The stars wink out, one by one, as if pinched from existence by an unseen, icy hand. Day wanes. The sun's radiance pales to a sickly, wan light, as if seen through smoke or frozen crystal. The moon, guardian of nights long past, cracks beneath the relentless weight of inevitability, shattering like thin glass. Her fragments scatter, drifting down in a slow, spectral rain. It is inscribed that Morgoth, returning in his ancient wrath, will seek to extinguish both sun and moon, to blot out the lights that have guided mariners and shepherds since the shaping of Arda. The Palantír shows skies devoured not by storm, but by an all-encompassing, patient darkness. Light flees the world, leaving in its stead not comfort, not warmth, but a cold, absolute night, a night that is vast enough to swallow hope itself.
Listen to these thoughts, whispered by the returning enemy through the stone.
I was bound and cast out. I was taken like a weed from a garden. The world forgot me, and so I slept. Yet the garden withered with its neglect, and in their neglect they summoned me. I am not returned to fight. I am returned to finish. When light is hollow, your songs are dust, and your prayers know no voice. I do not need bone to break. I will break the day. My presence is felt as a blight across the weather. Rivers chill, winds lose scent, birds fall silent mid-flight.
And as if the breaking of the heavens were not enough, the Palantír reveals that Morgoth's return is heralded by others of his ancient kin. Far to the east and south, in caverns long forgotten and hollows long seared by time, the Balrogs, fire demons of old, stir from slumber. They awaken in the deep places where the dwarves once hammered their forges, where the very roots of the world run molten and secret. Their rising is no quiet whisper.
It is a resurgence of hunger and wrath. The stone shows plumes of smoke clawing skyward like black fingers, and the terrible red flare of ember and lash. Their footsteps shake the bedrock. Their flames bend metal and rend stone with a cry. The Palantír reveals caverns illuminated as though by the dread dawn of the first days. And in that light all life flees, men, beasts, and birds alike. Gates are barred, fortresses shuttered, and the wide world recoils at the stirring of a terror older than memory. The earth groans, a sound deeper than stone, older than flame. From every cavern mouth the Balrogs rise, not as warriors bound to banners, but as living wounds, as fire that remembers chains. Their whips crack against the dark, and the mountains echo with the thunder of their return. And then silence. The fire dims, the stone stills. What I beheld was not an ending, but a hand closing the book before the final line could be read. The vision ends.
Thank you, my dear listener, for journeying with me to the edges of memory and seeing what the stone has shown. Tell me, what do you make of the vision in the Palantír? Do you believe it is possible that Morgoth could one day return to Arda? If you have felt the weight of this tale, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts below. Your curiosity and care keep the stories of old alive. And do not wander far. The next episode will reveal yet more secrets from the deep past and the hidden corners of our world. Until then, keep your mind open, your heart steady, and remember, even in silence, the stones may yet speak.